you said something a couple of times. You were kind of interchangeable on the guest, on the listener, and on the client. And so I'm curious, does your podcast, is it part of a business? For example, the top of a funnel? And if so, how does that work? And then we'll get into the marketing piece after.
In a very broad stroke, sort of.
Okay.
So the business, so when I left my corporate job almost a year ago, I took all those skills in doing nearly a decade and a half of leadership development training, leadership development coaching and consulting in the corporate environment, and started my own business doing that for people. And I just more recently accepted the fact that I should open myself up to provide a mastermind of some kind. So it's not one-on-one coaching or consulting, but in a group, using social constructivist learning theory, collaborative learning theory, to build off of each other using the structure that I've used for almost 2 decades. And so AJ, in a sense, is the target audience for that business. Does that mean I only serve Christian men 35 to 45? No.
I love that. I love that. That's important. And forgive me for cutting you off. That's important because I had a perfect avatar when I did real estate. Okay. It's Siva Venugopalan. It's a real person, a real human. Siva was a certain age, a certain ethnicity, a certain job title. He had a certain amount of kids. He struggled with certain things. He had a certain amount of money in the bank. And so it didn't mean that I was sexist because my avatar was a man. It doesn't mean that. It didn't mean that I was racist because my guy was Indian and not black or white or Hispanic or Asian or whatever. It didn't mean that I would push people out. In fact, we had a lot of people that were not 42 years old that invested with us. We had 18, 20, 25, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50, 60, 70, and 80 years old. And there was men and there was women. It didn't mean that I wouldn't serve anyone else. It's just that when I niched down and I knew who I was serving, that engineer doesn't mean I wouldn't work with a doctor. I wouldn't work with a lawyer, as you mentioned before, doctors and lawyers. But my perfect person was an engineer. It was easy for me to talk to them. And so I did my content for that person. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing with AJ. You understand that you have women that you can also serve. You understand that you also have somebody who's older than 45 or younger than 35. Maybe they're not all Christian and you're still able to serve them. They still want to work with you. You're not pushing out anyone. It's just when you understand a person and understand everything that they're going through, it's easier to relate to them. Super interesting. I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's fine.
And I apologize. And I hope you can get back to where you were.
What I was going to mention was, so the business side of things takes AJ's needs and goes deeper. So, I mentioned earlier that, AJ's need is that he's so overwhelmed at work that he doesn't have enough energy to bring back home. And when you look at the corporate environment today, we had the Great Resignation in 2021. We had the even worse year in 2022. And even though it looks like turnover is starting to drop here in 2023, the disengagement has gone up. So these leaders are kind of stuck with, gosh, I got a whole workforce where like 60% of them possibly have burned out and just quietly quit on me. And I myself am done. And so I've been helping leaders with a framework I developed over the past few months called TENT. And it's like, if you put these 4 stakes in the ground in your leadership career, your leadership tent actually pops up pretty easily. You have the adaptability to meet the needs of your team, and you create this environment where people feel cared for and they see their growth opportunities right there in front of them because you're leveraging what's in front of you, almost Mr. Miyagi style, to give people that growth they need in their career for their skills, their competencies, and so on. And so now that you're building this environment at work, you feel better about your day. You can tell everybody, hey, go home, great job today, and then you're going home as well. So it's an external thing to really address what I want to help people achieve, which is that overall life success, defining success for themselves, creating that vision. But to get there, They've got to have a quick win. And it's right there in the workplace. So if I can help leaders fix what's going on at work, create that environment that they've always dreamt of having, they can now look inward and say, okay, now that I got that settled, what about the rest of my life? What do I want to do from here? What do I really want to accomplish? And then now that they have that, that'll further fuel them into going back into work and creating an even more collaborative, empowering environment. Because the more that their team can do and take off of that leader's plate, the more that leader can take off for vacation, guilt-free. They can go home early. They can go to their child's soccer game, whatever it is. So the business ultimately is helping people. The niched part is I'm helping leaders boost employee engagement and stem their turnover tide with this framework called Tent. But ultimately, my hope, this is the tie back into the show, is I'm ultimately helping these leaders create a life worth living in their faith, family, and career. But we're just addressing the career spot first.